Yes, Nigel Adams, you'll recall, is one of Boris Johnson's closest lieutenants, going back years. He has been with Boris Johnson, so Nigel Adams, along with people like Jake Berry and others, one of Boris Johnson's closest allies and supporters. And this is beginning to look like a coordinated campaign of resignations. First of all, we had Nadine Dorries last night. Now Nigel Adams. Now Nigel Adams is MP for Selby and Ainsty in Yorkshire. Pretty safe seat, just over 20,000. He's been an MP since 2010. Under Boris Johnson, he had a few middle-ranking cabinet posts, ministerial posts. He did at one stage attend cabinet, although he wasn't a full member of the cabinet. Now, Nigel Adams, of course, was one of those tipped for a peerage, although whenever I asked him about it, he always claimed he knew nothing about it. But he did tell me that he told his association a year or so ago he did not intend to fight the next general election. Now, until a few minutes ago, it looked as though he would stay on as the MP for Selby and Ainsty until the election and then go. Now, in his announcement, he says that yesterday, Selby Conservatives selected an excellent new parliamentary candidate. And he says, I have today informed the Chief Whip, that's Simon Hart, that I will be standing down as a Member of Parliament with immediate effect. It has been an honour to represent the area where I was raised, educated and grew up and so on. So we face the prospect now of a trio of by-elections. What a nightmare for Rishi Sunak. So we're here in the Uxbridge and West Ruislip constituency, where the Labour Party, I can tell you, have wasted no time in sending in activists, MPs and, of course, their local candidate to do some campaigning this afternoon. The second by-election, this is obviously Boris Johnson, or was Boris Johnson's seat, not anymore. The second is Nadine Dorries' mid-Bedfordshire seat. That's a safe Tory seat. The Liberal Democrats have been there today campaigning. Are we going to see some unofficial moves here where Labour concentrate on this seat and perhaps the Lib Dems concentrate on the Bedfordshire seat? And now we have a third. Selby and Ainsty, where Mr Adams, as I said, a majority just over 20,000. You would expect probably Boris Johnson would want to get these by-elections over with as soon as possible. So we're perhaps looking at late July and probably hold them all on the same day. There will be trepidation, however, in the Tory High Command. How many more Boris Johnson allies are going to step down? You remember when Boris Johnson was Prime Minister, we had Sajid Javid went, and then minutes later Rishi Sunak went. That followed Oliver Dowden going. Are there going to be more resignations after these three? So it's looking like a coordinated campaign with Boris Johnson's allies basically saying to Rishi Sunak, we've had enough. We've had enough of your government. We saw what Boris Johnson said in his long, angry statement last night. We haven't had any long, angry statements yet from either Mr Adams or Nadine Dorries. She's been relatively circumspect by her standards over the last 24 hours. But we've got a by-election crisis now for Rishi Sunak, although his allies will say two of these three seats are relatively safe, over 20,000 majorities. But the Liberal Democrats, let's not forget, overturned big majorities similar to that Nadine Dorries had in 2015 in mid-Bedfordshire, in Shropshire North following the demise of Owen Paterson, and secondly in Tiverton and Honiton down in Devon. Remember Neil Parish, the MP who claimed he was looking at tractors on his computer. Well, I don't think it was quite tractors that he was looking at. You remember that story. Anyway, here we are in Hillingdon, in the Boris Johnson's constituency, where Labour is already campaigning. They would hope to overturn that Boris Johnson majority of 7,000. What about Mr Johnson? In his statement last night, he said, I'm quitting for now. Will he try and get Henley back, the MP there, John Howell standing down? Will he perhaps go and try and fight the mid-Bedfordshire seat or even Selby and Ainsty? Probably not. And it has been pointed out, of course, that the reason for his quitting, this report that looks as though the Committee of Privileges is throwing the book at him, even if he quits as an MP, the report will still come out. He will still be damned as having lied to Parliament. So, Mr. Johnson, you could say his reputation is in tatters, and he is angrily walking away. And the breaking news is that one of his closest allies, Nigel Adams, has now joined another ally, Nadine Dorries, in walking away from Parliament, plunging Rishi Sunak into a triple by-election challenge.
And John, these are quite incredible times we're seeing, aren't they? And who knows, you know, we've had 3 going within 24 hours before the end of the day, might get another.
It's possible, yeah. I mean, look, thinking about Mr. Johnson's closest allies, one would think of someone like Jake Berry, for example. He's MP for Rossendale and Darwin in Lancashire. Coincidentally, that's a seat that Nigel Adams stood in unsuccessfully before he became MP for Selby and Ainsty. He's a former party chairman. He has been pretty critical of the current government. The other really close Boris Johnson allies are people like Ben Wallace, for example. I don't think he's about to quit, the Defence Secretary. That would be extraordinary in the middle of the Ukraine crisis. And of course, he has been tipped as a candidate to be the next NATO General Secretary. He has recently stated that he is interested in that job. So, Jake Berry, perhaps. The likes of Jacob Rees-Mogg, unlikely to stand down. We've heard today, of course, that the veteran Eurosceptic Sir Bill Cash is standing down, but to be fair, he is 83 years old. I'm told that he has been considering standing down. He finds the travelling between his Staffordshire constituency and London a bit of a strain now that he's 83 years old. So it was not unexpected that Sir Bill Cash, aged 83, would announce his retirement.